Welcome to Between Sundays. Join Gary Lewis, Mark Williams, Loran Livingston, and David Cooper for candid, transparent conversations about life in ministry. This is more than just sermons and church services. It's the real work of pastoring, the challenges, triumphs, the heart and soul of ministry that happens between Sundays.
Welcome to this episode of Between Sundays, authentic conversations about life and ministry. Loran, David, Mark, great to have you guys back again. We were talking before we started. It looks like a motorcycle gang member kind of dropped into an IT corporate meeting here.
That's me.
But you're looking sharp in the leather jacket. No, hey, listen.
I'm being relevant, they say, right?
That's exactly
Y'all
right.
are being irrelevant, I think.
A neck tattoo, and you got the part down perfect. But it is great
Mark
to have you
already
guys.
got a tattoo, but that's like why he covered it up
Mark
today.
covers it up with his
exactly.
sweater.
I got the sweater so no one would see it.
Okay, we're already starting off on the wrong foot
It says
today.
we are the Church of God.
Okay, well then, I think it's acceptable if that's the case. Are tattoos that say we are the Church of God allowed? I don't know, so.
I have no tattoos, no jewelry. I'm holiness.
Impressive.
We have a special guest with us today. Pastor Demetrius Presley, Orlando, Florida,
Yes.
the Livingston Street Church of God. For this episode, named after Pastor Loran Livingston in Charlotte, North Carolina. But you guys have that's not what you call the church. Tell us the story of the name that is kind of the endearing name for the church.
Absolutely. Thank you again, and it's so wonderful to be here with you all. We call it the 910 Livingston Street Church of God, where there's no 10 like 910. The story behind that is one of our pastors that was there for so many years. He's really one of the fathers from the Florida area, Bishop Thomas E. Chenault. Yeah. He was there for more than 20, almost 30 years, and he was a well-known figure in the community, activist, but he served as a teacher as well. And some time while he was teaching, he had a real impact on the students, and the students started coming, and they always knew it as Livingston Street, but I guess they wanted to shorten it up, and so they started calling it 910. And so all the students would say, we're going to 910 this week, 910. It just took, and since then it's been called 910. So it's affectionately known as the Pentecostal Church in Orlando, 910.
That's a great story. And David, I think Mount Perrin, is it 2025 Mount Perrin Road?
Yeah, I was asked this last night. 2055.
2055.
Mount Perrin Road, northwest.
So there's no 20 like 2055. That might be a good slogan for you guys.
I'm trying to come up with a verse for Demetrius, and I believe off the top of my head that Psalm 9 verse 10 is, the wicked will be turned into the grave, and all the nations that forget God. So you may want to find a more positive verse.
We have to work on that one. We definitely have to work on that.
Okay.
Sounds a little negative.
We've absolutely accomplished nothing in this first 5 minutes of the podcast, so let's get down to conversation. Pastor, we're talking about ministry in challenging times and what that looks like. How long have you been at the church there in Orlando?
So I'm now going into 5 years. Actually came in right in the middle of COVID in 2020. The church was going through some challenges, and our state overseer brought us in. And one of the things we had to first do is just get in, and I've shared this everywhere I went for the success and the growth that we've seen there. We just love the people, and we just preach Jesus. And my family and I just have come in and just worked hard, and so we're excited to see where God is doing it. Right in the middle, we're right in downtown Orlando, right in the center of everything. We're 10 minutes away from Amway. The soccer stadium's right around the corner from us, and UCF downtown campus. So we have a very urban community that we get a chance to serve and work in, and we just enjoy serving down there.
And there's challenges with being in that kind of a location as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. So, there's always the entertainment lifestyle. That's a lot around there. And also just some of the challenges have been for us have been just staying relevant in the middle of a time where things have changed. A lot of folks have gotten away from the traditional churches and have gone different ways. And so we're maintaining that Church of God feel, and so we're still making impact, though.
One of the things we talked about yesterday with you guys was relevance is kind of irrelevant as if it veers you from Scripture, from truth. I think, Lorraine, I think you said you can become so relevant that you become irrelevant to hell.
Wow, that's right.
Found out in our time being there, staying focused to our roots. That's what's brought the most fruit to our church. Not trying to go after being something we're not, but just maintaining that focus to our roots. And the church now 103 years old. Wow. And so it's seen many days, great days. It's been through its challenging days. But one thing I can say from the time I've been there, the faithfulness of God has continued to be seen there. And we're excited what God is doing there.
I love to hear him talk like that. We've gone through a long period in the church growth movement where you have guys visiting different ministries to figure out how they can adapt some of those methods and some of these methods into their church. And people forget that God called them to be who they are, them to be who they are, and he called you to be who you are. So quit trying to be like somebody else. We've got preachers trying to preach like other preachers.
That's so good.
They want to dress like them.
Now, you don't mean wearing a black leather jacket, do you?
I was coming to that.
Yeah.
So, and you have to be who you are.
That's a good point.
The moment you realize God called you because you are you is when you will realize what your ministry is, not somebody else's ministry.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we've really focused on, and I've given our church this year, we were teaching a series on the Sermon on the Mount, and we focused on Matthew 6 and just talked about 5 relevant things. Do the right things for the right reason. And then we went from there and we talked about let's pray God's agenda and not our own.
Wow.
We left from there, and this is the tough one because it's so important, because your relationships will either make you or break you. And then, even in these times, while you can get caught up trying to chase after others, number 4 was to focus on making sure that we prioritize eternity over temporal things.
Yes.
That's good.
And then here's the last one, and this is the one in ministry I've learned over these years I've been in ministry. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
And so from just teaching that, just those 5 key components have helped us to stay who we are. I think that's the greatest thing, the authentic person that we are, the ministry that we have is the greatest thing that we can bring to the kingdom. And I'll tell you right now, this generation can snuff out a fake and a pretender very easily. So you have to really just be intentional about just being who you are.
And it may not look like everybody else, but it's, like you said, be who you are.
Be who you are, and you have to realize in the ministry, you are going to lose people all the time. They come and they go.
It's a movement, you're right.
Yeah. You have a core, they're with you, but the periphery, they'll find a much better deal down the road somewhere. And we live in a day when the kids tell the parents where we're going to church. So if every time you lose, did I say something wrong?
No, you're good.
We thought it was great.
It's true. It's true.
It's truth.
Yeah.
Okay.
We enjoy the way you say things. We agree with what you say. We just enjoy the way you say them.
Well, I'll try to continue in that. Thank you. What was I saying anyway?
Kids
telling
determine
parents
where
where to go to
families
church.
go.
You were talking
Okay.
about the core stays with us, and people come and go.
Yes,
and that's
they
part
do.
of ministry.
And so if my security in Christ is based on people leaving, if I feel like a failure, and I do, I grieve over everybody that
So
leaves.
do I.
So I'm a
Yeah.
hypocrite. I'm sitting here telling a young pastor, don't do it, and I do it all the time. But I have to continually remind myself, it's his church. People are fickle. People are sheep. I'm a sheep. They're just acting like I do, except I happen to be the one in the pulpit. So if we could just get to the place where we realize they come and they go, that's the way it is.
I think this is the benefit of building a building, property that's sacred, a building that's sacred, because it sits 103 years. Our church, now it's moved at 105 years in Mount Period, but when you plant a physical place and put a ministry there, because life is movement. People are born, they die, they get married, there's a natural movement. as long as the church stays there, and you talk about a long-term pastor, the pastor becomes a consistent voice for all these people who are traveling. Mm-hmm. People are on a journey, and they're on a journey with God. They may come to church for a while, and that's not where they are spiritually. Mm-hmm. And you have the opportunity that moment, the way I look at it, and I wish everybody stayed, but this may be the day that the first time they heard the gospel. But they're on their journey. I may see them again. Other people are part of the family. But I'm with you. I don't like it, but that's what it is.
It hurts.
But I find pleasure in being the consistent voice. Here's a place. This church is always here. You're going to have hope and healing here. Where you are in your journey, like the prodigal son, you may wander off for a while and come back, but the Father
will always be here.
There's a home for you always, and the message never changes, like you're saying. We can change the method. That's a normal thing. But the message and the ministry stays constant.
And it's hard not to take it personal, Mark. It's hard not to, when people come and go, it's hard not to think, well, maybe it's something I did, or it's something that I'm not doing, or I call them
Sometimes it can
chasers.
be that.
It
they
can
just
be.
want something.
They just want something different.
It does hurt, and I think it should hurt.
Yeah.
I think we don't love people
Because that means you take it,
hurt.
I was going to say, because that's your calling. Your calling.
And then I have this thing where somebody leaves, I grieve, they come back. Mm-hmm. 2 or 3, 5 years later, and I want to say, yeah. I told you.
Well, one of the things with our church, because
I'm just
it's
glad
so
to have
old.
them back, but I appreciate that.
Because it's so old, it's an older church, from the different times and different pastorates, people have left. But I can tell you, when we came back and just became very consistent in the community, being a present pastor, consistent pastor, not only did some of them come back, their children and grandchildren have now started coming in because they've seen that. And that's a testament, to the consistency of preaching the gospel and just loving the people.
Tell me about when you went to Livingston Street. I mean, what a legacy church. What a magnificent historical church, out of whom has come incredible ministry and ministers of the gospel. Tell me about that. How did it feel to first go in, and how did you become clear about who you are in terms of the pastorate there?
Right. And so that was interesting because when the bishop was looking to place someone there, I had given him 5 different names of great ministers that could have.
You gave him.
I gave him other names. I was saying, hey, this one would be a great one there, that one would be a great one. And we left from the conversation. He calls me the next day and says, no, I need you to go there. And I'm like, no, I'm not worthy. That was the first thought. But I went home, talked to my wife, and we've been married now 24 years. And I sat down with her and I said, I believe there's a call for us to go here, but I need you to pray about it. Where we were known, pretty much moving into the next seat at that location. So I just knew that was the place for us. But sometimes you can make your plans, but God is the one that charts our course. And so my plans would have stayed there. But when we went there, I started to pray and say, Lord, you brought me here for a reason in this season, and I just need your hand to lead us in this season. And when I came to grips, because I started thinking about some of those names, Quan Miller and Quentin Wallace and Tom Chenault, most of all have been, some of the state overseers for that region. And I was like, Lord, whatever your will is, I'm open to it. But one of the things I said that really changed it, I sat down with my family, and I have 3 girls and 1 boy. And I said, the Lord is sending us here for this season. And to me, this was the seal. My son said to me, he said, if this is what the Lord is saying do, we're all the way behind you.
Wow.
And that was the seal for me, because I don't believe in doing ministry without my family. Sure. Or at the expense of my family. And that's a challenge in today's time. It's so tough to balance family life and that. But I told the Lord a long time ago when I started in ministry that if it's going to cost me my family to do ministry, I'll just stay this. But as long as my family can come along, because that's a challenge today. Pastors keeping their families together while feeding the sheep, while ministering to the community. And then at home, they're public, success, but a private failure at home. And I didn't want that for my family.
I think of when we had Colleen Howard on the podcast.
Yes.
And she was talking about Sean. And she credits how her kids have worked through this process of losing their dad to the fact that not only was he a good pastor, not only was he a great preacher, but he was a great dad. And so there wasn't that resentment and that bitterness because he was such a presence in their lives. And so it does make a difference. And,
Absolutely.
I just thought of that podcast we had a while back with her and what she shared about how that relationship at home made a difference when crisis came to their family. So great stuff.
The wonderful thing, that leads into that, and now all of my, children are serving in ministry with us.
Oh, my goodness.
My son he's worship leader. My daughter, she's leading youth ministry. They're serving in the church.
That's awesome.
And I always tell them, because I'm asked, how did you get that to happen? I said, well, it wasn't by force. It was by choice. And I truly believe that when you model at home what you share from the pulpit, that it will be received. And you may have a few that fly out and do a little different things, but it will take root, and they'll always remember the same person I saw standing on the stage is the same person I saw at home.
Amen. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We come back. One of the things I want to dive into, especially with you three, because all of you pastor churches that are over 100 years old, followed pastors, some multiple pastors. Mark, North Cleveland is a who's who of Church of God general overseers have pastored there.
That's true, yeah.
Dr. Walker. So all have followed legacy leaders, and what it looks like to be in that kind of a church, and how you use that legacy for good.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things that I've witnessed way too many times is when guys go to that kind of a church, not necessarily 100 years old, but a church that's established and strong. There seems to be this sense of I've got to go in and undo everything that's been done before me, and we've got to start from scratch. And sometimes the damage of moving quickly like that and going in and shifting, we talked about it some in previous podcasts, that it's not your church, it's God's church. But you guys are all three of you have been in that kind of a church and have so successfully picked up the baton where you got it, still managed to move ministry forward without destroying everything that came before you. So we get back from break, we'll talk about that. Thanks for joining us today. Share it with your friends that have podcasts. You can catch it anywhere you get your podcast from. And we'd love for you to join us as we continue this conversation about life and ministry between Sundays.
You're listening to the Between Sundays podcast.
Welcome back. We're having a great conversation with Pastor Demetrius Presley from the 910 Livingston Street Church of God in Orlando, Florida. There's no 10 like 910. And I believe we've got the scripture for you, Psalms 910.
We're working on that still.
That's my first suggestion. Move on from that.
You can work from there. It's been a great conversation. Before we break, I want to come back and touch on being at a legacy church.
Sure.
Mark, I guess if anyone pastored a legacy church, the North Cleveland Church of God in our denomination is one of those churches. And the litany of great leaders, T.L. Lowry, comes to mind, and he had a season as pastor there, and so many others that have come through that church. And I think I see a lot of times with a lot of pastors today, is they feel like they have to do away with everything that was before them in order to establish their own identity. And sometimes, maybe all the time, the healthy route is not to go in and destroy everything that was before you, but maybe go in and build on what was there to honor the heritage, but focus on the future.
Yes, to honor the past and to embrace the future. And I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I don't think you have to choose one or the other. I really think that there are things in the past in all of our churches that we look at that we think, wow, had it not been for this or that this person or that person did, this church would not be the church that it is now. And and in reality, all of us are just kind of running a marathon with each other, handing the baton off. We're all interim pastors in a sense. We have our place to be, we have our role to play. And how beautiful it is when a person like Pastor Demetrius can be secure in their own identity, when they don't feel like they have to fit in a particular mold or style, but they simply, from who they are, step into this amazing history and begin to embrace the future as well as honor the past. Look, there will be changes, of course, that have to be made. But Demetrius, when you find yourself having this wonderful legacy, but perhaps it is time for something new. And sometimes the something new means that the other thing is probably ready to cease, that it had its day. How do you navigate change?
For me, it was right in the middle of COVID. So COVID gave me a few opportunities. I didn't call them challenges. We have a few opportunities now to address a few things there. And when I came in, I had a mother in the church, well seasoned beyond me. She said, I told our leaders we didn't want a young pastor. And after about 3 months there, after just preaching and teaching and loving, she said, I got to come back and say I was wrong. We needed you in this season because you were able to merge who you are as a minister and share the gospel with what we are. And I think that was the gifting that God gave us for that time and that season, while we're able to still, we incorporated the live streaming, the internet, the social media impacts, the family gatherings and different things. All that came new. However, they found relevance in it because it didn't take away from who they had seen the church being for many years.
I personally don't think that God caused COVID. But I have to say that during that season that all of us went through, for which there really wasn't a playbook on how to navigate through that, the Lord helped many of us during that time to be able to truly identify what the church is and what is essential to doing ministry.
And I've learned, and I really give this credit to one of my spiritual fathers, Henry James. He always said, you have to be who you are. God made you who you are. And so when I went in, knowing all those names I mentioned earlier, even such as K.P. Hardeman and
my goodness,
they were there, and then you had C.C. Pratt.
Yes.
These are some of the great men of God of Florida Cocoa that we were able to follow behind. I just had to take a deep breath and say, I have to be who I am.
But you have an old message.
Mm-hmm. The message still the same.
It's not about the minister.
Mm-hmm.
The message is old.
Mm-hmm.
And if we preach the authentic gospel, it transcends any personal characteristic. It's a timeless message.
Absolutely.
She apparently heard that you had not changed the message.
Absolutely. Okay, stayed the same.
So we're not, and by the way, we're not young or old, as Sean's unfortunate passing taught us in that story yesterday.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as young or old. You can be a child or an adult, right? That's the two seasons of life. When I was a child, I thought like a child, I talked like a child, I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. The only two seasons of life are childhood, when we're dependent, and adulthood. This is why you can be 30 and have a friend who's 60. Because once you get in adulthood, it's a state of constancy. Every day's the same. And you're not young or old. Once you become an adult, it's the message that's important. The message is an old message, a timeless message, a historic message, regardless of what messenger it comes through. And that's what we're talking about, the relevance. The ageless gospel is always relevant. If you modify it it ceases to become the gospel. You quoted Romans 1:16, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. It is the power. It doesn't bring the power. It is the power.
That's right.
But once you modify the gospel, it loses its power. And now it's something other than the gospel. There's no new gospel. If it is, it's not the gospel. So Somebody says it again, say, but I'm preaching an old message.
Still preaching an old message.
Well, and it says what Loren said a while ago. You just got to be yourself. Mm-hmm. You just have to be yourself. God called you for who you are. He didn't call you to be C.C. Pratt. He called you to be Demetrius Presley. And so if we are who we are and we're true to the gospel message, the authentic message of God's word, the truth of God's word, ultimately God's going to use. God called you because he knew who you were, and he's going to use you to share his truth regardless of the setting that you're in. The call is on you, so you don't have to go in and be like somebody else. So I love what you said about, I just went in there and I was me. Mm-hmm. And I think, Loren, we opened this podcast with you saying, just be yourself. Quit trying to be like somebody else. Quit watching TV and say, I got to be like that guy. Just be yourself.
In many ways, Pastor, you represent the hopes and dreams for which we have been praying. The way that you have stepped up from your generation to answer yes to the call of God. What must the Church of God do at this point in our history to continue to capture the hopes and dreams of a new generation?
You know, and I know it's a new generation, but this is an old path, which I think is important we understand. Sitting with Brother Loren for about 15 minutes, just the mentorship, the knowledge, the wisdom that I heard was so impactful. And I know sometime, and I know there's an aging population that don't want to let go, and I know there's a young generation that's ready to go. But if we found a way to bridge that together and come and have that time together. Relationship. It either makes you or breaks you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the key. How do we start to really build authentic relationships? And if Jesus is at the center of those relationships, it will not only bring us together, but we'll see the fruit of it. Because the root is real pure. The root is what we need, which is that sincerity of what we are in Christ.
I think what happens to ministers is they stop keeping up. Like the goal of ministry, in my opinion, is not to be innovative. It's to keep up. So we do it every day. If you have a car, when you get a new car, you get the newest model. You don't go, I think I'm going to buy me a 1940 Model T, unless you're some collector. If you get a cell phone, you don't go get the new iPhone, whatever it is now. It's off the chart, 18. And say, by the way, I want to go, can you got one of those iPhone 2s back there? So you don't go shopping at an antique store unless you want to be a freak looking, walk around like a costume. So we naturally keep up with everything without thinking about it. And it comes to ministry. Yeah. The guy says, I'm going to preach the King James. We haven't spoken it in hundreds of years. It's just English. You don't speak it anywhere else in your life. You come here and you make the church archaic. We're going to sing these old songs. Well, they wrote them because they were new. And it is when you're trapped by your traditions, instead of just treasuring them, that's the problem. And so the ministers, they stand at the pulpit, and it takes you back in time. You go to a church, and you feel like you got in a time capsule, and you think, well, am I 1970s now? I'm in one of these time traveler movies. They get out of the church, and they normally keep up. So it's not about being innovative or progressive. It's about keeping up. Churches fall behind in their communication, in their art, in their architecture. They change their house. They keep up with everything. And you come to the house of God, and it sits stagnant. It doesn't keep current with where the world is. And it's not an aging problem. I've seen guys, whatever number their years are, you would not say they're aging, but their church is. They're not keeping up, and they're trapped by their traditions, and they think there's something sacred about the way they do things. It's only sacred what we do. How we do it is irrelevant. As long as we pray and preach and feed the poor, and it's the wine. It's not the wineskin. And so I think the idea of our churches, that's the problem. Our churches have not kept up in their communication.
I've never thought of it from that
art.
perspective before of just keeping up.
Don't fall behind.
I've never thought of that. We do it in every other aspect of our lives.
Well, the colors right now are gray and black and white. Maybe a little burgundy or teal. And you go to church and it's still like, It's
We're going to jump in and say blue, too.
in other words,
Go ahead, okay.
it was rust colors or something, you know. So when that happens, your wife says, we got to get new countertops, you know, and we got to change the paint. And you go to the house of God, and it looks like it was designed, it was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And they repaint the walls the same color as the original, and they're just not keeping up. And they only treat the house of God like this, like a museum.
Wow.
And everything else, they want the newest, the best, and it comes to the house of God.
You know, and I
we
like the comment on the songs we sing. They sang them back then because they were new. I had not thought about that before, but it's the truth. You know, they sang them then because they were new. We sing them now because it's tradition.
Correct.
I'd like two things, and I'll be brief.
No, go ahead.
There's another thing I want to say about how we treat our churches, our sanctuaries, our holy places of worship. We feel free to stack boxes in the corner.
I agree.
You know, you've got trash cans everywhere. It's unkempt. I think God's house ought to be the cleanest, nicest, most up-to-date,
Yes.
organized place in the whole city. The rule at my church is you don't put a box in a corner because you don't have anywhere to put it. You find a place to put it. You keep the aisles and keep the lobby pretty. I've been to churches and you had to walk around stuff, books that they've stacked up. And
I inspect
things
closets.
like
I want every closet to be organized and clean.
every
You're right.
office.
People see their vision. As soon as they drive up on your campus, they see who you are. You don't have to print a vision.
That's exactly
They,
right.
the minute they drive up, they see who you are. The way they greet people, they already know your vision before they ever sit down. They see what you're all about.
How much you care about what you're doing.
Back in the day, Pastor Demetrius, when they had larger pulpits, and some still do on their stages, but back in the day when they had larger pulpits, if anything was lost in the church, the first place they look is right under the
If you're a guest preacher, you see there's all kinds of stuff under here. Like you don't want to go scramble through this. Say, what's all this?
the pulpit.
Let me take a slight left turn here because we've
That's
used
funny.
the term relationships quite a bit.
Yeah.
I am all for that. I must be a relational person. I must know my people. I must be accessible. But there is a line you draw.
Sure.
I'm still the pastor.
Absolutely.
And I may be having coffee with you. I may take a short 2-day golf trip with you. But there's going to come a time when I'm going to have to correct you. And then you must see me not as your buddy. I am your pastor. I'm your shepherd. When we first started, I told you they couldn't pay us. But the gentleman that helped get the church going was a very successful builder, real estate guy. He said, I tell you what I'll do, Brother Livingston. I'll let you work at my front desk at my office. You can be my receptionist, you know, run errands, and I'll pay you so you can have some income. And I said, I can't do that.
Good for
Because as your employee, you would have authority over me. There will be a day when I will have to correct you. And I will do it as your pastor, not as your employee. So I turned it down. It's very important that I don't want to be misunderstood here. Relationships matter,
Sure.
but so does my call.
Absolutely.
My position, so to speak.
Well,
as
all
I-
relationships have boundaries. They have definitions. Sometimes I can talk about even a friend within the church, and I'll say, I need to know right now, are you asking me as a friend or as your pastor? I want to be clear because at times you have to wear different hats.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying. There are lines and there are boundaries and definitions of relationships.
Yeah, and I think absolutely clear on what you were saying for sure. And I think that anyone that's pastored any length of time has either encountered, because they've crossed that line,
They crossed the line.
a negative response in the relationship, or will at some point have that negative because the perception of the relationship from the church member when the pastor has to deal with something is, wait a minute,
Right.
not me, I'm
Yeah,
your friend.
yeah.
So, Pastor Presley, you walk into a church as a pastor, and perhaps you are younger than most of the members. at least the stakeholders of the church. How do you gain the kind of respect to be able to lead in a proper way? You know, even Paul had to tell Timothy, don't let people despise your youth. How does that happen?
You know, and even as Pastor Loran was talking, I was thinking about that because, you know, I walk into this seasoned church, a young preacher with my family, and the first thought is, you know, how do I relate when they see me as their grandchild?
That's right.
And so I believe the key was allowing the gifting of the Holy Spirit to lead me. And it was really just taking root and being who I was. One of the things I remember going in and sitting in one of my meetings, I was like, every last one of them, I could be their grandchild. So I had to, of course, start to shift that a little bit to bring in a more of a generational look in there. But the tough part was when it was time to correct, because I had to still stand on posts. And I think coming in early, it was more just preacher. But over time, it became pastor. And so I understood that, you know, because that is a slow evolution. Because when you walk in somewhere, they've known this person as their person. It takes time, and that's where
you know
it's
the pitfall of the past is the further we get from it, the more we romanticize it. And we know this in like memory of the brain.
Absolutely.
Absolutely true.
The brain likes to go back and put memories together as one story, and it seems to filter out, unless it was trauma, all the baggage, and we cherish because there's a positive feeling with it. So the further we get from the past, the bigger it becomes and the grander it becomes.
Oh yeah. And now even those ones that were just kind of, that's the pastor, now they're saying that's my pastor. And that just comes through the development of time and being there for those intricate moments.
And I never like to talk a lot about my history at Mount Perry because I'm a pastor of the now. I'm living every Sunday. I want to focus on what we're doing now instead of just falling into the romanticism of the past.
Right.
This is so good. I remember reading through the book of Joshua as leadership was transferred from Moses to Joshua. There comes a point in the book of Joshua where God actually says to him, "This day I have established you, your leadership, in the eyes of the people."
That's good.
And I think whether you are a new pastor at a church or whether you are a pastor that happens to be younger than a lot of the stakeholders, as you continue to be faithful, as you continue to love people, as you continue to try to earn their trust through care, there comes a point when God establishes you as the leader in the eyes of the people.
I believe that people tell you when you're the pastor. And it's interesting, but that's a great point. It didn't happen when Moses laid his hands upon him.
No,
you're right.
And I've shared this in marriage counseling with the blended family. And I remember the day it came to me, there was a man, he married a woman, this later marriage, and she had like a teenage daughter or something. And she wanted him to be the father, and the child obviously rebelling against it. And he said, "Man, I'm so confused. I don't know what my relationship should be to her daughter." And I said, her daughter will tell you what your relationship is. Right now, you are her husband, and that's all you are. And he said, "That's a great relief to me." I said, "The daughter will tell you what your relationship is. She'll tell you what she'll call you." And in the church, we go and do our best, and over time, they will tell us.
They sure will.
Yeah. I mean, I had an evolution in Mount Perry, too. I was a preacher. They love my preaching. But next thing you know, they call you pastor. After 9/11, that's the first time I saw the word lead. We appreciate the way you lead us. And the highest compliment I got was when people would say today, "We know you love us." And so I saw that evolution of preacher, pastor, leader, you love us.
And I would say in our context, just because you mentioned it, David, that when Moses laid his hands on Joshua, that's not when he was established.
Mark's making a great point.
In our context, that would be when the overseer comes to the church and says, "This is your pastor."
Right.
That does not necessarily establish you in the eyes of the people to be the
No,
pastor
I
of
don't
the
think it does
church.
at all.
And
it
if
doesn't.
you have to always stand up in your first words, well, as overseer or as pastor or I'm the pastor, if you have to continually lead with your title, You're not the leader.
You're really
You lead
not.
with a towel and not a title.
So good.
I have a number of family members on staff. Not one of them addresses me by my first name or dad. In public, my brother gets up, he makes, he says it's pastor. Anywhere we go that there are other church people, my own family addresses me as pastor. So in the eyes of the church, my own family respects the call.
Affirms it. Yeah.
My family does the same, and the church.
Same here.
Even privately, say, well, call me David. And they're, when you're not in the public. And I do that for other pastors. Like if Todd, my assistant, he gets up, I'll call him pastor. In other words,
Yes.
if you don't honor people,
Absolutely.
you're going to reap what you sow.
They're watching out there,
Some
too.
pastors demean the other ministers. They want all the limelight instead of elevating them to their honor as well.
Absolutely.
We were at a recent.
Should I start calling you pastor now instead of Rand?
I
thought we were doing this
prefer that.
this first name thing. All right, I'm sorry.
All right, as the
call me-
general
how about-
overseer, we're going to break
How
here.
about
The
Bishop?
general.
How about Bishop?
No, because I voted.
start that again.
I voted against the title bishop, and I'm proud that I voted against it.
I'm with you, brother. I just don't like it.
I'm proud
Don't
of
call
my
me
vote
bishop.
of no.
Same. Agreed.
Did you vote for it? I
Pastor,
voted
what-
against it, and I'm proud of it.
Bishop, pastor, doctor, what were you getting?
Reverend,
ready to
most
say?
holy.
Press. That's what they call me, press.
Apostle, prophet.
But one of the things I was going to say, I remember an instance early on, one of the members, they would always say, "Oh, that's the pastor of 910. Oh, that's the pastor of 910." And recently we was at an event after some very tragic things that happened in their family's life. And guess who showed up first? We were right there. Not because of how they said that to me or felt that way. And so when we went to this next meeting, she was with some other people and said, "That's my pastor."
From
And
the pastor
from
to
the
my
pastor.
pastor.
to
We
my
talked about
pastor.
that yesterday,
Yeah.
about the Bible to my Bible, the personalization of it.
And I think that was rewarding of the consistency of just being, preaching Jesus, loving.
I was at a restaurant right from the church, Canoe, which is really nice, and I got up. There was one of our members was there and had his corporate, like this 6 people around the office, and so I went to speak, and he got up and he said, "This is my pastor."
That's huge.
It's massive. It's
it is.
such a blessing.
It is.
Absolutely.
But they tell us who we are, really.
That's a good point. They're going to let you know who you are, and that's what's a great conversation. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. Some questions that you've sent in. We want to take time just to hit a few of those before we run out of time. Pastor, thank you again. Bishop, Pastor, Elvis, whatever they call you,
Apostle.
Prophet,
Pope.
Presley, Pope, Bishop.
No, Presley's good.
So it's great having you with us. We appreciate you taking time. We'll be back right after this with some closing questions.
You're listening to the Between Sundays podcast.
Well, welcome back to Between Sundays. I'm so glad that you've joined us, and of course we're here with my colleagues Gary Lewis, Lorraine Livingston, David Cooper, and our very special guest, Pastor Presley. We're so glad that he's with us. This is our favorite segment, really. It's a time that we look at questions that have been sent in to us, and questions that have been sent from those who listen, from those who watch, and we'd love to hear from you as well at any time. One of the questions that has come has to do with burnout. How do you sustain the pace of ministry and take care of your own soul and your own heart and don't come to the place of burnout?
Yeah. So
Let me ask a question first. Can somebody define burnout?
I can.
Okay.
It's when you've been under a long period of stress, and eventually you just can't function anymore. Like you go on and on, you're under the stress, you don't deal with it, and eventually you just run out of resources. You're just too tired, you can get depressed, you're just overcome with anxiety. You really can't function, so your performance starts dropping at that point. And you just feel like you can't go on. You have ideas of quitting, you fantasize about resigning the church in this context. These what they call flights of fantasy, like David, oh, that I had wings of a dove, we call them flights of fantasy. Just so much pressure. The only thing that you can think of is to just leave. So it's stress just carried on too long instead of dealing with it.
Well, one of the things I think about with that is how do we avoid it young in this, but one of the things that I've learned is to practice the Sabbath. which is the toughest one.
Say it again.
For us as leaders to
Yes.
do, to practice the Sabbath. Learning how to turn the phone off, learning to spend a day away from the message and the preparation and the people, just to make sure you're refreshed. And I hadn't always done that. Total transparency. I hadn't always done that, but I had to learn that because I saw it not only affecting how I lead, because I don't want to bleed on the people while I'm leading them. And to avoid that, you have to practice that Sabbath. You have to make time to pull away. Even in those seasons where it seems like you're running at a fast pace, you still got to make sure you maintain that.
And I think there's always seasons.
Yeah.
Everyone in ministry, any length of time, is going to have seasons where it just feels like you're hanging on by your fingernails, where it just feels like you've given everything.
Christmas, Easter, whatever it is.
Yeah, they're
building
just where
programs.
it's just been a season of just constant. Even if it's conflict, you're just in this. It seems like a season where it's just relentless. It's just relentless, and it just wears on you. And
That's what I
all
do.
go through those
And
seasons.
I'm comfortable like just working, but I already know, all right, I'm getting ready to I'll just say I'm just taking 3 days. I don't have to go anywhere, but just stop like you're saying, and be intentional. It's okay to run. It's good to run like that as long as you know you're not going to keep running. You're intentionally going to just stop and don't call me and don't email me. And
that was my thought on
That's
that.
a great thought,
You have to be
Demetrius.
intentional with it, because if you're not, it'll never happen, because you'll look at it. Being, the challenges in ministry, I'm bivocational. I served 9-10. I've always served in government administration, not because I'm forced. I really enjoy serving as public service. But in those roles, the requirement to really stay away from burnout is having a great team around me. And so that's been, I pour into my team. I pour into the people that serve alongside me to know that, so it keeps me from overloading myself and still being able to have those moments of intentionality.
In the Song of Solomon, I think it's chapter 1, verse 6 or so, there's this startling statement. They have made me the keeper of the vineyards, but my own vineyard I have not kept. And there is, I think, at times, the tendency to be so consumed with taking care of others in the vineyards that the Lord has put us in, and failing to keep our own. The single greatest gift that Sandra Kay and I ever discovered in ministry was just what you said, Demetrius, and that was the gift of Sabbath. I had to learn it the hard way, but actually setting aside every week a 24-hour period where we did nothing but that which rests us, that which refreshes us, that which renews us. Sometimes it meant total inactivity and reading. Other times going out playing golf, doing something that renews us. I found that when I put that into practice, and that was late in my life and ministry, not until I was at North, really. When I put that in ministry, I found that the Lord helped me to get accomplished in 6 days more than what I was trying to accomplish in 7 days.
And let me say something, Mark, because I think it's important to point out, Demetrius, you mentioned you're bivocational. Because obviously, for somebody that's working 40-hour-a-week job, but also has a church that considers you full-time, whether they pay you full-time, whether they still perceive you to be full-time, for that individual that's carrying not only a job in the workplace, but also pastoring their congregation, it becomes very, very difficult, and you've got to be highly intentional to carve out any time, because your time off from work is your time that you're getting church stuff done. And so to hear you say as a bivocational pastor it's a priority, because I think a lot that are listening to us are bivocational, and they're thinking, okay, you guys can do that, but you don't know my situation, but you can still do it.
Absolutely.
You just got to make it a priority.
Absolutely. And that's
I
the
want
key.
to know what the benefits of, I've always thought about this because I've never been bivocational in that sense. The benefits of being a bivocational pastor. There's a Baptist pastor in Atlanta called me, he's got a little church in Laurelsville, and he's telling me about it. And he's bivocational. He says, I just need to decide whether I'm going to take the leap of faith. And so I need some insight here. There are benefits,
Sure.
I would think, and I've never heard anybody ever talk about the benefits of being bivocational.
Well, you know, I believe not only for me, this is me, I've been called to the pulpit, but I've also been called to the marketplace. I really believe that I have been gifted in that area to plant ministry in the marketplace as well. And so for me, the bivocational has always been, and this was my prayer early, because ministry has always been, since 16 years old, I've been in ministry. And I always said, Lord, I know at some point I'll work, and that maybe at one point I will be full-time. But I said I don't ever want it to compete with it. I need it to collaborate and to complement it. And so everywhere I've been, because I've graced him with that, none of my work outside has competed, you know, from traveling, from doing ministry. Because if a death happened,
I didn't mean in that sense. I meant,
Yeah.
do people expect less of you? Like one of the
I don't
pressures
think
in
so.
ministry are the expectations or the pastor's perceived expectations. And if you're bivocational, it seems to me that people would expect a little less, being respectful of your time.
You would think that, but that's not the case.
Okay, so that's not true.
No, I think, you know, they still
You would think.
they want to see us. Yeah, you know, as the leader, even though they know that, they want to know they can connect
Okay,
with
so
you.
it doesn't change the demands.
No, and I think for me, it hasn't been overbearing, because again, I'm doing something I love to do with God, something God has graced me to do, and it complements each other.
What if you had a major death of a significant person, and the family they got to have you there, and the position is saying, you have got to be here. What do you default to in that scenario? Maybe you've not had it, but
I won't say I haven't had it. I just haven't. The Lord's, again, it's always been compliment. So my role is as a town manager. So I set my schedule, and so that's the wonderful thing about it. It didn't always start there in earlier years,
Yes.
but God has graced us for this season where I'm able to set my schedule so I can travel and do what I need. And the world has changed too because of the way we work.
That's right.
I can take it with me.
Yes.
I can still do my meetings. I can still do my work. I have my laptop, and so I'm not secluded to being at a desk in order to accomplish high functioning.
I know a
work.
Church of God minister up north towards him. He likes to watch both services, and we text each other, and he's a fireman. Mm-hmm. And he was calling me about, I'm up for a promotion, but I want to do more with the church. And I encourage them, right now, you've got a great livelihood. You've got children, which is more, like you said, take care of your family. And instead of seeing this as a competition, and he got the promotion. He called me and said, I got it, thanks for praying for me. And so I've watched him also manage the two worlds. I was just I was
I like the
curious.
concept of collaborate, that
Yes,
they
absolutely.
work
Isn't
together.
that good?
But I do
Yeah.
want to say, and I don't know that there's a single church member watching. This may all be preachers. I don't know. But if there is a church member that's listening or watching, and they do have a pastor who's working a full-time job outside the church, my admonition would be, please be mindful of, they work a job just like you work a job, but then they also are doing ministry at the church on top of that. And so if you could roll up your sleeves and take off some of that responsibility, if you can come alongside and help in those areas, and just be mindful that your pastor's not only doing what you're doing, but they're doing for the church as well. And I think that many of our bivocational pastors who are working full-time jobs, but then also at the church feel like they're the only ones doing it at the church as well. That's where we talked about burnout. Or I think that's
Absolutely.
how this conversation started, talking about burnout.
The reason I
think
brought it
that's
up was,
where that comes from.
Yesterday that I weighed in on my feelings about the term small church, and I said, for me, they're not small. It's either significant or insignificant. And I encourage pastors to stop saying that. And I would hope our denomination, no offense, would stop saying it. But the vocational thing, to me, it's always sounded in the church of God like it's a negative. Well, 60% of our men are bivocational, like it's a negative thing. That's why I was asking. There could be a lot of positive
It is
benefits.
definitely positive.
And I think some men may even feel, well, I'm bivocational. Like this guy with the Old Baptist Church, do I need to take a step of faith? What he's basically saying, do I need to step out of a solid income into poverty to do the ministries? That's basically what he's saying, because the church isn't strong enough to carry him. It's not a step of faith. It's a step of foolishness. But you can, I love how you said it's your calling. But it's not a negative thing at all. It can be a tremendous advantage in
Absolutely.
different ways.
Yeah, and I think the impact that it has on the community. By the way, General Assembly is going to be in Orlando, Florida
Absolutely.
in 2026. So if the town manager has any way of assisting us with that, we would greatly appreciate it.
Yes.
It's been great having you join us today. It's been a tremendous conversation. Honestly, as I sit here, I don't even know what we talked about. We talked about so much stuff. I think we started out on challenges of ministry today, and where we've ended up, I don't know. We're talking about one thing that I do want to mention. We talked about keeping our churches, their sacred space, keeping it clean,
Yes.
keeping it neat, putting away the boxes. I was with a pastor recently who Ray Garner appointed him to the church. The church was ready to close down. There's about 8 people there. And he said, when Brother Garner called me, he told me, he said, there's no people. Church is about falling apart. He said, but it's got a good lawnmower. And he said, here's my advice. If you'll just cut the grass. Mm-hmm. He said, I think that church will grow. And that pastor told me, he said, you know what I did? He said, I got that church, I cleaned up the inside, and I cut the grass once a week, and today they run about 100. Awesome. So he when you were mentioning about keeping the place clean, Ray Garner said, it's got a good lawnmower. If you'll just cut the grass, I think your church will grow.
That's a good book title.
Yeah,
that is a great conversation.
Just cut the grass. What a great conversation. Pastor, thank you for being with us today. We have so enjoyed hanging out and hearing your heart and the work that you're doing in Orlando, and know that God's going to continue to bless your ministry there. Thanks for joining us today between Sundays. Authentic conversations about life and ministry, and we'll see you next time. The show notes have all the information, and we even have a link to Pastor's church, so you can go on there and watch him preach, and I know you'll be blessed to see what's happening at 910.
910 Church.
No 10 like 910.
No 10 like 910.
See you next time.
Between Sundays is a member of the Church of God Global Communications Podcast Network.